There's a large club of theater singers who work hard, sing well, have solid storytelling skills, and yet regularly deliver forgettable, boring, and tedious auditions that yield no callbacks and no traction. I myself have been a card-carrying member of this esteemed society. One time I took a class with a director I'd auditioned for in New York, and I hadn't booked any shows that he was directing, but I'd heard his class was helpful. After a few weeks of work and adjustment, he said to me in front of the whole class, "I did not see any of this depth and potential when you auditioned for me. I didn't see one bit of it." And I knew he was right, because I was doing this one thing that regularly shoots theater singers in the character shoe. So what if there was one shift you could make that could fundamentally change everything about how you show up in an audition room, on camera, in the rehearsal hall, on stage, and even in your life and relationships? And what if this shift was very simple and something you can practice anywhere? And what if this shift meant that you can guarantee yourself a satisfying, embodied, and integrated experience, whether you're in an audition room or at rehearsal or on the stage or Trader Joe's? Now, while you cannot control the outcome of what the table people decide, this shift will help you become so joyful about the things that you can control that I will bet you a froyo that you'll also see changes in the results you're getting from auditions. This tool also shifts how you interact in the world, and in my experience, it makes your life sweeter, more present, and it helps you relate in a wholehearted way. This journey starts with the one and only Betty Buckley. Betty Buckley. I was privileged to do scene study and song interpretation with her when I was in New York for about 3 years. And if you don't know Betty's work, you need to give her a quick Google, and you'll see that she is one of our masters of theater singing and storytelling. And one thing about her class that drew me, confused me, mystified, frustrated, and taught me was meditation. We meditated a lot. And I was suspicious about how this was going to help me snag a leading role in an original Broadway cast, that was my dream at the time. But the seeds she planted during those years grew into some of the strongest trees in my technique forest. Meditation taught me to be an observer, a witness, a compassionate witness, and to look at things differently than I ever had before. And the reason I took Betty's class was because the few times I'd seen her perform, I noticed the whole atmosphere in the theater changed when she sang. And I wanted to be able to create an experience like that. Betty said something over and over in class, and it made zero sense to my 24-year-old noggin. She would say, "Be the seer, be the observer." I see just fine, thank you very much. That's what I would think. You're telling me that seeing something is gonna help me get a call back for you're in town? Oh Lord, I was a basic mess in Betty's class. I did some good work, and other days I'd stand in front of class and just shake my shoulders and sob and not know why I was crying. And I would tell my students now that that's important work too, but she stood with me through all of it. And it was this lesson, to be the seer, that created a superpower in me as a singer and as a human who wants to share and live a vibrant, wholehearted, connected life. But what was it about Betty's admonition that created such a shift? Well, it was quantum mechanics, of course. What's your first expectation when you walk into a singing class? Naturally, it's to discuss the dual wave particle nature of reality. All right, well, if you do a quick Google on it's called the double slit experiment, you'll find out how this process led to the birth of quantum mechanics, this whole incomprehensible field. But I'll spare you my attempt to explain, but the nutshell of it is this. Scientists learned that light could behave either as a wave or as a particle, depending on how it was being observed. A photon beam was aimed at two slits in a metal sheet and created wave patterns after passing through. So scientists were like, that is curious. Shouldn't it behave like a particle? They expected light particles to have particle behavior. So they set up a camera to see what was going on as light passed through the openings. And once the cameras were operational, the light changed its behavior. And it made a pattern that showed the behavior of a particle rather than the behavior of a wave after it had passed through that barrier. The mere change of adding an observer, a camera, caused the wave to collapse into a particle. This is the power of the observer. You have experienced this power in your own life. Have you ever had a teacher who formed an opinion or an assumption about you the moment they met you, and the energy of that point of view completely shaped your relationship with them? You can feel the power of an authority figure's belief about you in your very cells. If you had that Little League coach who yelled at you all the time because they believed in you, while you may not have wanted to do those extra laps and push-ups, the fact that someone saw great potential in you planted something substantial in your guts that told you you had what it took to play good defense or get around for that third pirouette. I will say that again. In this series of experiments, light changed its behavior based on being observed. Being observed. Looking at it changed it. And I remember hearing Betty say that in class, and my mind simply did not accept it. A thing's a thing is what I thought. How could it be changed just by looking at it? Like, that violates objective reality. And I still don't know how that happens, but my experience has shown me that it's true. When I believe in a student and I call out the possibilities I see, one day they turn around and they notice they're singing with a balanced, organized voice while living a specific story with an open heart. And it even surprises me when I see it all come together. I'm like, dang, these tools work. Even though I know they work, I know it, and it just still mystifies me. Even when it works for myself, I'm always amazed. So this information, how you see things, is crucial for you as a singer and a storyteller, because you can actually determine not only how you're looking at things, you can also shift your actual vantage point. And this piece of intel is crucial. And this is what Betty meant when she said, be the seer and not the seen. Be the seer and not the seen. The question for you to ask is, are you seeing the world from behind your own eyeballs? Are you cozy and rooted into your own soul, looking out and relating to the world and folks around you? Or have you hovered your consciousness somewhere outside yourself like a self-critical drone and begun to observe yourself from the outside? You can feel the energetic shift in someone when this happens. So if I'm here, hunkered down in my own body and looking out to you with an open heart, that feels a certain way. And if I float out of myself and look back at me, wondering what you're thinking, or was this shirt a good choice for today, or what do you think about my singing, my acting choices, and how can I get you to like me? Like, I can feel a shift in that. That's an uncomfy place to be in my experience. And we all go there. It seems that humans are the only sentient beings capable of this self-conscious particle collapse. So that's question one to ask yourself. Am I looking and seeing from behind my own eyeballs, or am I somewhere outside shooting scrutiny lasers at myself? Scrutiny lasers. Becoming aware of where your consciousness may have located itself is indeed step one, and this is something you can start to ask yourself anywhere. You can do it in an exchange with a cashier or a barista. That's a great time to practice. Or you can compliment their glasses or talk about the weather. And what does it feel like to relate to another human without wondering if your shoes were a good choice? And also notice what it feels like when you start to leave the center of you. This happens a lot when we predict the future. If there's a thing coming up when people will be looking at us like an audition, we often sort of pre-game it in our head and imagine how it's going to go. But notice where your imagination centers itself. Is it focused on your experience from inside your body, or are you playing out how you may be perceived by folks out there? Yeah. I have spent countless days in that zone, the wondering, the outside zone, and I still do. Even as I communicate this to you, my brain wants to ask, how am I doing? How are you seeing me? And yes, you definitely want to read the room. The way people respond to you is key information. But the question really is, okay, so I get the whole where am I looking from thing and why it's important, but how do I change it? And the good news is it's just like singing. You can practice. If you feel a kind of gut crunch or contraction, if your mind starts to run through scenarios and wheedle plans to manage how folks perceive you, you've sent the attack copters out. So on your next breath, you can bring yourself back into yourself. Try it. Let your air out first. Now breathe through your nose and let yourself come back in behind your eyeballs. Notice things in your environment and name them to yourself. You've got a wall, doorknob, window, tree, bench, stoplight, sign. And when you fly out again, you can return on your next breath. You'll also notice a feature of self-consciousness is that it shuts down your breathing. So when you get it going again, it's easier to move yourself back home, just with the movement of breath. So when you're singing a song, you may notice, oh, whoops, I have floated over to behind the table people and I don't like this. So tell yourself, on your next breath, you can come back. On my next breath, I can come back. And it may take 3 or 4 breaths, but you can come back to you. It's the ability to fix the bike while you're riding it. That's a phrase I learned from my spiritual director, Kay. Anytime you're moving from A to B, there will be things that don't go to plan. So on the next breath, you get to decide again, and that's how you move through a song too. So it's becoming aware of where your point of view is. Are you grounded in your own skeleton, looking out to your world, or are you zooming around to figure out how you're being perceived? And the truth is, you can never really know. And the good news is, most folks aren't thinking about us. They're not thinking about you, they're not thinking about me. They are thinking about themselves, just like you are. So that could be some very liberating information. On your next breath, you can come back home. Now, you're probably like, all this sounds very self-realized and like a generally more pleasant way to walk around on the street, but will this have real effects in the audition room? If I get behind my eyeballs, am I going to book those jobs? I would bet you a frozen yogurt, again, a muffin, cupcake, that if you cultivate this awareness and work from your identity as the seer, you're going to see a shift in your results. You have to. There are unlimited factors about auditioning that you have absolutely no control over. You cannot control what direction the table folk take. So stop trying to crack that code. There is no code to crack there, not like that. But if you've ever had the privilege of sitting behind an audition table, you will see this difference immediately. When a human walks into the room and they human from inside themselves and relate to you heart to heart, your own heart opens and says, oh, thank God. Thank you for being a fellow human person. It is like cold spring water on a hot day. Or if it's winter, a cozy blanket. That energetic exchange is life-giving, and that actor made the table person's day better just by relating in this way. So the director I took the class from that time, the one who told me he saw nothing about my talent, I didn't show him. The reason I disappeared in the room was because I was desperate for a directory person to say, you know what, you're really talented. I think you're good. That's not their job. Their job is to cast a show. And your job is to bring excellent work into the room, and you'll do excellent work with satisfaction when you commit to seeing. The way you might be seen from the imaginary outside of you is not your business. It's not controllable. There's no way for you to even form an accurate assessment. And if you can, please see if you can get behind an audition table somewhere, be a reader or a monitor or get coffee for folks. You will see this immediately. You'll see there'll be folks who come in, sing real pretty, do a nice job, and you just can't make yourself care. You can't make yourself care. For a number of reasons, their attention is not hunkered into their experience of a specific story, and their energetic focus blurs. It gets really cloudy. And you may hear directors and casting directors give the note, that's too general, I need specifics. So general is a self-consciousness defense. General is a self-consciousness defense. It's like when Cinderella sings in Into the Woods, you know what your decision is, which is not to decide, because a decision has to come from your own guts and your own point of view, from seeing things clearly. If you're too occupied perceiving yourself from an unreal outside, there is no way you have the mental and heart capacity to see and play with possibilities in the story. And you'll be like I was with that director. You will be blurry and invisible. So my answer to will this shift in focus, will being the seer help me get more jobs? I can't imagine a world in which this won't help. And most importantly, can you imagine how much more content and satisfying your life will be living from this place? You can practice all the time. You can practice this skill all the time. And when you feel contracted, anxious, you notice your breathing stopped, you can come back inside on the next breath or 3. I always say that singing and storytelling is about opening your heart and inviting folks inside. So remember, you cannot invite someone in if you're not there. You can't invite someone in if you're not there. Now, caveat, before you go about your singing aggressively looking outward into the mid-distance, checking every breath, if you're truly inside your body, remember, in our human experience, we look a lot of places. I look at the outside world. I look into my internal world. I even have regular moments of self-consciousness. I've probably had 7 already while I talk to you in this video. And that too is a human thing you can share. What if every time you noticed you were feeling self-conscious while sharing a song, you remembered every person that can hear me knows exactly what it feels like to be self-conscious. Everybody understands this. So you can join them in that. You can then invite them in to that reality with you. You don't need to resist it. So acknowledge it as the protector it's trying to be, and then invite in. And to give you even more clarity on how to do this, here's a video from a series I made for you. You can click on that, and this will give you a super simple fix for how your eyeballs can help you, number one, feel like a human, and number two, enliven your experience of any story you're singing about. So I'll see you over there. And please remember, there is only one you, and somebody needs to hear the story that only you can sing.